souffle or something? Whatever you keep in, what would he keep in his refrigerator? What goes with head?
Well, I can give you an answer. I can give you an answer to that, Steve, because I pay close attention to the things I watch and the things I read. He had A1 sauce. He had ketchup and mustard in the door. He just had regular condiments in the door. And he had baking soda in that refrigerator. And the reason why is because neighbors and all sorts of people, and this is a Gacy connection, would complain about how horrible his apartment smelled. So there you go.
Put a little ketchup and mustard on a human head sandwich, a little lettuce and tomato, Have some A1 barbecue sauce.
I'm a Heinz 57 guy, though, so I wouldn't have the A1.
Fair enough.
Just to clear it up, I wouldn't be eating it on a head, though. I'm not that kind of,
You just kind of almost admitted it there, buddy.
He likes head, just not that kind.
Yeah,
hey,
but so did Jeffrey Dahmer, as a matter of fact. He liked to, whenever he would kill these victims, he would generally perform oral sex on them after they were dead.
Mm-hmm.
So, in most cases, you hear about these guys with necrophilia, and, they're fucking the corpse or they're fucking its head. Edmund Kemper, I'm looking at you. But in Dahmer's case, no, he was going down on them.
But
I guess the rigor mortis is set in.
He wanted to do it when they were half alive, but that just never worked out for him.
He never could turn them into the zombie he was looking for.
Right.
John, since you're a big part of the gay community and
a
steward of okay. Sorry, I had to do that. But I will tell you this, Dahmer was into the gay sex, but he wasn't into being the bottom, apparently. He did not want to take an ass pounding. He wanted to give out those ass poundings.
I bet you that changed when he got to jail, didn't it?
Factoid for you all.
You hear what I said?
Well, maybe not, though, because, the thing about him was you'd think he'd be a guy that would never be put with general population. There is a theory going around, and probably a very credible theory, to be honest with you, that there was collusion among the guards there to kill Dahmer. Not to kill Dahmer, but to have him killed. They put him in an area where they knew he was going to die. And this is a guy, Dahmer, once upon a time, said that he was going to kill, he wants to kill 1,000 African American. I don't know exactly what he said, but I can probably assume what racial slur he used that day. And you put him with guys like convicted murderer. I think this guy was a child murderer at that. I don't know. He's convicted murderer, African American murderer, Christopher Scarver. You put this guy in there, and he killed Dahmer with the same weapon that Dahmer killed his first victim with, and it was a dumbbell. So kind of a interesting way to go out there, considering. But I don't know, man. It just seems like a setup to me. I mean, like they put him in the situation, not that they had killed him, but they put him in the situation to be murdered, which for some reason or another, Jerry Sandusky's still around, and I would like to see that son of a bitch get murdered in the worst way.
You ain't the only one. And it still brings pride to my heart every time when I hear, I don't know if you know the story about this, when they played Pink Floyd The Wall on the radio. Mm-hmm. Do you know the story about that?
I do, but I'll let you tell it for the people who don't know it.
Oh, my God. When he first got into jail, all the prisoners started singing, "We don't need no education." And then when it got to the part of where they said, "Hey, teacher, leave those kids alone," they yelled it. And every time I hear that on the radio, I'm thinking about him just getting ass raped by somebody and getting possibly beaten to death one day. It just makes me grin.
I think there's a good possibility that he's probably not in general population, though. So he's probably not getting that. And the problem is, though, the reason why these guys don't get put in general population isn't so much that they don't want to see the bad things happen to them, because they don't give a shit at that point. But it's more of a situation where if you're a prison and you put somebody in general population, if they have a family, which Sandusky does, they will sue the shit out of them if something happens to them, even though they're, fuck them because they deserve it, but it is what it is. By the way, I hear some laughing back there. Is anybody else on the line that wants to talk? Feel free, chime in. I believe you're all unmuted now. Anybody that wants to talk about Dahmer?
I'm unmuted.
Can you hear me?
Yeah, I can hear you.
Hi.
Introduce yourself.
Okay, my name is Alyssa.
Alyssa from Ohio.
Yes, ironically. But no, I wanted to say something actually earlier about the whole connection with the dates and stuff.
Mm-hmm.
I was actually born like almost about 2 weeks after he got caught.
Wow. You're a youngin'.
Yeah, I'm young. Sorry. Yeah.
Well, you know, Dahmer did live in Ohio for a while. Just a little connection there for you.
I've always lived in Southern Ohio, and he lives in Northern Ohio. So that kind of, you know, I was wanted to drive by his house though, so it's only like 3 hours away. So.
We were going to get a female on because I wanted to ask her this question, but I'm going to ask you, Alyssa, because this is the first time I think that you've gotten to listen live. Okay, so by and large, okay, like I get the connection with Bundy and females, okay? He's the lady killer. Bundy was a good-looking guy, whatever. Okay, I totally understand, you know, why women were fascinated by Bundy. It makes sense. What is it with Dahmer? Can you tell me from your perspective what it is about Dahmer?
Okay. First of all, well, I'm not going to lie. If I think somebody is attractive, he's an attractive man. I think that probably is what sets people first, like, oh, hey, he looks good, and then you think, oh, this and that. I think some of it is the fact that I feel like a lot of the things in the case was pulled out to bring more sympathy towards him because of what he experienced in his life. So they're like, oh, well, he was this, or, you know, he was gay. And then I think sometimes women feel like a motherly connection, like, if only I could have been his friend, or, you know, like, I don't know, just somebody there to be with him. And you know how, like, women are always like, oh, I want a gay friend, you know, I don't know.
Yeah. Well, it's interesting to me because, okay, when women think of Gacy, every woman I've ever talked to is just flat out repulsed by him. But with Dahmer, you don't get that. But you did share the part about him being attractive. Although I would have to say the mugshot where he's got the perv stash, I would assume you probably don't think that was very attractive.
It was appropriate,
the
though.
stash thing, I credit that to just like the time period. I don't know.
Yeah.
I'm just like, I don't know what that's about, but yeah.
So okay, you were born right around the time he was, you know, caught and everything. So, you know, what the hell gets you into Dahmer later on? I know you're into serial killers. I know you're into that subject. Jerry, John, and I all kind of lived through it, or at least on some level. Is it something you just kind of maybe saw a movie, saw a documentary?
Well, honestly, what really got me into serial killers, which I got into it pretty young because people are like, how are you that young? But I think we're all kind of like that. I was probably like 13, and I seen a documentary on Ed Gein, and I was like, okay, I'm thoroughly kind of freaked out, you know? But then it slowly became like, okay, this is an interesting thing. Like, I'm interested in it, but I was kind of like nervous to be like, well, I'm interested in this, this, and that. But I had a friend that was like, look, I got a big serial killer encyclopedia book. And I was like, cool. So, you know, we went through that whole thing. We rented movies and stuff, and I found him in one of the books, and I was thinking, his name sounds really familiar. I've definitely heard of him before. You know, since it was kind of, you know, he was right around when I was born, I feel like I would, you know, hear more about him. And then I started reading it more, and I was like, you know, he's really interesting. So out of the few movies we rented, the movie Dahmer was one of them. And I think that's really when I started getting into it.
So, okay, so now that we have everybody on the line, or the people I do have on the line, Jared, John, and Alyssa, I'm going to ask you all. Okay, so 16 is what we know as the confirmed victims for Dahmer. All right, I'll start with you, Alyssa. We'll go ladies first. Do you think that's accurate, or do you think there's more?
Okay, first of all, I actually thought it was 17, but I'm not sure.
See, when I look at the Radford University list here, they have 16 victims. 17 may be right, though.
Yeah, well, I thought it was 17. Well, after listening to everything, which I kind of already knew some of the stuff that Arthur was talking about, because I already looked into it. Whether I think that he did that, I'm not completely sure. There's a lot of convincing evidence, but I really don't know. And then
Right.
I also think that, yes, there's a possibility he may have done something well in Germany, too, but I don't think women was part of it. I think that's a little stretch, to be honest. The child thing, not as much of a stretch, but I just really don't ever think he was interested enough. I don't think he even paid attention to women at all, really.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. So gun to the head, all right, throw out a number. What do you think, 17, 18, 19, 20?
I could see, 20. Maybe
That's
a few
what I
in
think.
Germany. I think there was, 4, maybe actual, I think he said confirmed in Germany.
Dude was a liar. There had to be more than what he said. That's my thing.
Right, I know.
Well,
no,
you
what
can't
gets
trust
me
these
is,
guys.
Yeah, I know. I know that. And it's what gets me is, he all of a sudden was like, okay, so, everybody said, okay, well, he was a liar. He lied about this his whole life, or lied, to his parents and everybody else all the time about even small things,
Mm-hmm.
Well, that's what gets me, okay, so now all of a sudden he wants to tell everybody everything. I mean, it could happen, but that does seem a little fishy to me also.
And his reasoning, and I don't know if he had anything to do with Adam Walsh or anybody else in Florida.
Yeah.
But he did have reason to cover that up. If they have the death penalty in Florida, why would you tell people you did something down there if you want to avoid the death penalty? Which it seemed like he didn't want the death penalty. So just saying. John, what do you think? What's your number? Go ahead.
I'll go ahead and listen.
What?
Oh, I thought you had something to say. I didn't want to cut you off.
No, the only thing I was going to say was about the death penalty. Like I said, he would have actually, and I'm not saying that he's not above lying, obviously, but he would have had to be totally flat out lying because he had said, oh, well, I do want death. And apparently before he died, he said, I don't even care, kill me or something. So I don't know how true that is, though.
Well, Johnny boy, you're up to bat. What do you think?
Thinking about the whole thing, and I know you said 16, 17. I don't think it's going to be much more, and the only reason I don't think it's going to be much more, he's playing around doing the experiments and doing that. I'm thinking at some point he really took some time. He's like, wait a minute, I almost got this. I got this perfect victim. He took some time with it. And then, it either went, of course it went the wrong way. You were doing, backyard science, of course. So I think maybe at the most there's at least 4 more. I'm going to say 21. That's the number I stick with. And that's I'm doing that because of the fact that I think he took some time. I mean, if he just went right to just, kill him, grill him, fuck him, eat him, I would say there would be a bigger number. But no, he seems like he was very, he took time with stuff.
Before I get Jared's opinion on that, I do want to agree with what you're saying there. And when he talks about these victims, he acted like he loved these people. It was really weird. It wasn't one of these things where he hated them and had no remorse for them, like a Gacy or a Bundy. He seemed like he loved these. It was bizarre. But Jared, you're up.
Yeah, he said a couple of times in different interviews that his objective was never to kill these people. There was the living zombie thing that he admitted to, which, as we said earlier, never quite worked out for him. They always died on him. But, I got to think with I got to think there's at least 5 more out there. Chuck also writes in and says he's thinking around 20 to 25, so that's kind of, I'm around maybe 20, 22.
Yeah, I figure it's got to be at least 20, but I don't know, man. See, this is the only reason I'm all for the death penalty because fuck them, but at the same time, it's this is the only reason I want to keep them around because I find them so fascinating, but at the same time, they really don't need to be breathing my air. But
he
you know,
got
Dahmer,
one way or another.